Thank you so much, Misha. Welcome to the June 6th service at First Jefferson Unitarian Universalist Church. It's occurred to me that in all of the videoed streaming services I've done, I don't believe I've ever actually introduced myself. I am the intern minister here. My name is Turner Bridgforth. And today is actually my last service here at First Jefferson, for those of you who don't know. Yeah, thank you. It's going to get worse, trust me. I do want to thank everyone who's here today, who was able to join us to help make this service happen. Reneel Baker, thank you for being here to sing. Misha, to play the piano. Julie, Guy, I appreciate you guys for being here, and everyone else in attendance who's here to show their support, as they have for me during my entire internship in the last year. Don't really have too many announcements this morning. The only real one being that recently all of the services have been online and will continue to be until further notice. And if you have any questions or want to reach out to the church, always feel free to do so at the church office. I think that's about it for announcements today. Misha, would you like to play a little prelude for us? Thank you. Us for worship this morning. No matter who you are welcome here. No matter who you love, and no matter how you choose to pray or recognize the world around you, you are welcome here. I wanted to invite everyone today to join me in celebration of my time here, to celebrate my internship, to celebrate everything that I've learned from all of you. And I wanted to start that off with our opening hymn this morning, which will actually be our only hymn this morning, which again will be sung by Reneel Baker, as well as everyone else, the handful of people in attendance this morning. It's a song that's been stuck in my head for a few weeks now, and it keeps kind of popping up. And I'm not one to ignore the signs of the universe. So I'd like to invite you all to join me in body or spirit, here in this room or in your homes, in front of your screens, in singing our opening hymn, our only hymn today, number 401, Kumbaya, also known as Come By Here.
Singing, Lord, kumbaya.
Please join me in the lighting of our chalice. The words should be available on your screen. In a world filled with the darkness of ignorance, in a world filled with the darkness of despair, in a world filled with the darkness of hate, let us shine the light of love. Please join me in reciting the covenant of our church. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung through every land by every song. This is the time in our service where we would normally hand out the plates for our offertory. It's become the time that I remind you that our pledges are still welcome, due, and needed here in the office. Feel free to contact Carl in the office directly by email, or feel free to come by and drop it off at your nearest convenience, and if you can. Every quarter we have a Share the Plate with a specific charity in the area, and this quarter it is Eastside Ministries, who has been doing as much as they possibly can, and a lot more than anyone could really expect during these troubling times. Now is the story for all ages. So I'd like to invite everyone at home who's got their children with them to invite them into the room, if only for this part of the service. Our story this week is called Sister Goose and the Foxes by Faye Mogensen. Sister Goose swam in the pond, happy as could be. Now and then, she ducked her head down to nibble a little bit here and nibble a little bit there. She took no more than her fill of those succulent underwater plants, for she knew that the pond belonged to everyone. Meanwhile, Brother Fox was hiding in the willows at the far end of the pond. He didn't like to see anyone happy, least of all a goose. Sister Goose swam along, enjoying the clear blue sky and the bright sunshine. She swam along the willows growing at the far end of the pond. All of a sudden, Brother Fox sprang out of those willows, shouting, "Trespasser! You get off my lake!" Sister Goose shrugged up her wings and looked at Brother Fox, mystified. "Trespasser? How so? This lake does not belong to you. It belongs to us all." Brother Fox didn't seem to hear her. He carried on. You've been eating some of the plants in this pond. They don't belong to you. If you don't get out of this lake, I'm going to take you to court." Sister Goose was truly perplexed. She knew she hadn't done anything wrong, but she could see by the ugly gleam in Brother Fox's eyes that she wouldn't be able to convince him. Instead, she said, "I'm not afraid to go to court over this. At least there, justice will be served." And so they went to court. But when Sister Goose arrived at the courthouse, she was very surprised. The clerks who just sat inside the doors were both foxes. Inside the courtroom, she saw that the lawyers were foxes, and the judge was a fox, and even the jurors. Some of them had red fur, and some of them had brown fur, and some of them had silver fur. They were all foxes, too. Sister Goose was quaking as she entered the defendant's booth. Sure enough, though her arguments were sound, the judge and the jury found her guilty. They convicted her and turned her into stew. That is how it goes. There isn't much justice for the likes of a goose when the folks in the courthouse are all foxes. This is normally when we do our communion of names and milestones in the service. And thank you for inviting your children to join us for that moment. The one milestone we have this week is that Jude Olson asked that we pray for her friend Denise Hager, who is in Pennsylvania getting ready to start chemo and radiation therapy. Denise is a lifelong friend of Jude's, and so this is hard for both of them, and everyone could use their support no matter how distant you are. Thank you, Jude, for sharing that with us. The reading this morning is not a reading. The reading this morning is a memory of mine that I'm going to share, whether I like it or not. When I was in the first grade, my teacher taught us about the Civil War. She first very carefully explained that white people and black people are equal now. Now being 1988. Before she went on to explain that a long time ago, white people used to own black people as property, as slaves. She said that was why we fought the Civil War, and that slavery ended because of that war. It was not long after that that I said a horrible thing to someone who I considered a friend. I looked my friend, who just happened to be black, directly in the eye and said, "Ha ha, my great-great-granddaddy probably owned your great-great-granddaddy." I walked away believing that my statement had proved my superiority and that white people and black people were equal. I walked away thinking racism didn't exist anymore. And I was 7 years old. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I know what my friend thought on that when I made that comment, that horrible comment on that day. I'm not going to guess as to how or why he did not decide to retaliate. I will say that if he had been white, or if I had made a similar horrible statement of superiority to a white student, I do not think they would have hesitated to have punched me in the head, or knocked me to the ground, or reported me to the teacher or the principal for my hateful words. I would have been reprimanded. I would have been corrected and probably punished. But I'll never know, because I got to walk away that day pretending like racism didn't exist anymore. After having just said something horribly racist. I still feel guilty about it now, today. Please join us in singing another verse of hymn number 401, Kumbaya.
Someone's dying, Lord, Kumbaya. Someone's weeping, Lord, Kumbaya. Someone's fighting, Lord, Kumbaya. Oh,
Thank you again, Reneo. I gotta say it again, the singing sounds so much better when it's not just coming from me. With today's sermon being my final sermon of my internship, I want more than anything to thank the congregation of First Jefferson Unitarian Universalist Church for allowing me the opportunity to be their intern for the last year. I want to thank you for sharing your congregation with me and with my family. I want to thank you for all the opportunities this congregation has offered me to help me learn from those experiences and challenges, demands and rewards of parish ministry in the Unitarian Universalist Church. I want to speak this morning about the unexpected challenges that I have faced with you, like the challenges of staying connected or streaming content as a church during a global pandemic, the creation of a new small group ministry programs, and the concerns about how to continue to grow as a congregation. That's what I wanted to talk about. That's what I wish I was going to talk about. That's what I thought today would be. I thought this morning's service would be a bittersweet online goodbye from me to you, which, by the way, would have the same amount of tears. But it can't be. I can't stand up here at this pulpit in this sacred space and act like people in the world outside these walls, get it together, are not risking their lives to stand up to the inherent racism in our country today. I can't do it. My bittersweet goodbye does not seem so important anymore. When people are literally risking their lives to march in the streets of this nation and many other nations across the globe, I do not think that I am that important. I'm not trying to belittle or demean or ignore the meaningful and important connections that I have shared with the congregants at First Jefferson. I just can't stand up here as a white man and a preacher in this country after the events of last week and spend more time than I already have celebrating myself. Too many white men have done that into too many microphones too many times already. I'm sad to say that I do not have any answers this morning. Just thoughts and ideas and maybe a little bit of hope. During the student introductions around the room in one of my divinity school classes, when you're told to give your name and why you're here, the older, straight white male in the class, when it was his turn, pointed out that in many of the cases, most of the stories told by the students in the class about denial, suppression, and injury, the perpetrators had been straight white men. Everybody nodded. He was not shedding new light on anyone. He continued to say that he was really frustrated, and he wanted to know what we being straight white men, could possibly do to fix the problem. In my mind, I immediately thought of an old saying: if you find yourself stuck in a hole, the first thing you should do is stop digging. To me, at the time, white men in power trying to fix the problems of everyone who isn't a white man, especially when those problems were caused by white men in power who claimed to fix other problems, sounded a lot like digging to me. Sounded a lot like digging a hole. And if you find yourself in a hole, the first thing you should do is stop digging. This idea has haunted me ever since. Because I'm in the hole too. I believe all the white people in this country are in the hole with me. I may not have started the digging or even done much of it myself, but I am still in it. I was born in the hole. I feel like if I look up, I can see the light, the sky that hangs over the same world outside the hole, but it seems completely out of reach. It's a very well dug hole, very sturdy and quite sheer. It's dark in the hole. And all the other white people stuck here with me are screaming in the darkness. We didn't dig this hole. Who put us down here? Whose hole is this? I didn't do any digging. Someone else must have put us in this hole. Is this hole even real? Or are some of us just making it up? The people outside the hole keep telling us we're in a hole, but they're probably wrong or making it up. They don't know what holes are. Everyone in the hole is trying to fix the problem, but the hole just seems to keep getting deeper. I don't want to be in the hole anymore. I want to get out of the hole. I want everyone out of the hole. But I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to get us all out. If I had an answer, I would have given it a while ago. There is absolutely a lot that you and I and we as white people can do. Many of you can contribute your time and energy to the efforts to end the system of racism in our country. If you want to help, but going to the march in the streets is too risky due to the pandemic for you, go online. The number of charities and organizations working to help the cause is encouraging, and you can certainly find the right one for you. I'm still in the hole. I'm in the dark. I'm not sure if what I'm trying to do to help is helping or just digging the hole deeper. I've decided that my contribution, for now, is going to be to listen, to learn, and to try to help educate other white people as best I can about how racism has been infused into our lives with many of us never noticing. Before I continue, I have to point something out to you. That black person you know, the one you want to run your ideas by, the one you want to ask to gauge your racism for you, the one you think might be able to tell you what you want to do or how to behave correctly, that black person is not responsible for helping you. Don't ask them. It's not their job to stroke your ego, call you one of the good ones, tell you what to say or how to talk to black people without being racist. We dug this hole, and it's been a problem the people outside the hole have dealt with every day of their lives in one way or another. Some of us are still not sure we're in a hole at all. If white people can't figure out how to get out of the hole, it's our problem, not anyone else's. We cannot shout out the top of the hole in order to demand and expect help. I used to think I wasn't in the hole, but I think I see it now, and I just want to try to help others to see it too. There's a term for it that's being branded about a lot these days that that sense that you're not in the whole. It's called white fragility. Many of you have heard of it. And I know that many people misunderstand the implication. Most white people get very upset when they are accused of being racist. Our initial response is to defend ourselves adamantly. We defend ourselves by being offended, even angry at the accusation. We accuse others of being more racist by comparison, by implying that our accuser is just too sensitive. We defend ourselves however we can. But we white people rarely listen. We don't want to think of ourselves as racist because we think of racists as men in white robes with pointy hoods lighting fires in black folks' yards. We think of racists as neo-Nazis with swastikas carved into their foreheads, randomly attacking anyone with darker skin than they happen to have run into in a cold, dark alley. We conjure these images in our minds because this is what we are told racism is. Take a deep breath and try to keep listening. Everyone in this country, me, you, all of us, are racist. I want to make this clear because it may not push the pill down. It may help push the pill down. Racism and bigotry are not necessarily the same thing. Racism tells us that we can make assumptions about a person based on the color of their skin. Bigotry is hatred, disapproval, or dislike for a perceived group of others because of their otherness. Racism does not come with a guarantee of a sense of hate or even dislike of a perceived others, but it does make the other a them. In the story I told earlier, you and I know that I am guilty of it. And in so many more ways than that. I'm in the hole too. I hate it. But I'm not going to pretend like I'm not in the hole. I can't anymore. I've gotten away with it for too long. Being able to pretend racism was not a problem in this country has been a small part of my white privilege for most of my life. I can ignore racism. I can pretend it isn't there. In the last week, I have thought many times about how I don't want to think about it anymore. That is white privilege. Racism is only an issue if it's on the news for me. It's not part of my daily life. I've been trying to deny myself this privilege this week, forcing myself not to look away, not to pretend. Still, my efforts fail to compare to what many lives are living in right now. And still, my white privilege allows me to stop whenever I want. I know I'm not the only one listening to my voice right now who has felt white guilt. It's been boiling and burning inside me, blaming me for being complicit, reminding me I should do more, tearing at my insides as I struggle to figure out how to react. It hurts and it's uncomfortable and I don't know what to do. I don't have an answer. I wish I did. I wish I had a brilliant and perfect answer. But I don't. Me offering answers feels like digging the hole deeper. I want to get out of the hole. It's hard to see anything in the darkness. I feel blinded, like I can't see anything for what it really is anymore. As much as I want to get out of the darkness of ignorance, recognizing that I cannot see, perhaps listening could be one of the steps to get out. I have tried to keep learning what I do not know. I don't have an answer. I can only listen, learn, and share. I do not have an answer. The people outside the hole do not need to help us, but we can listen to them. Sound travels in both directions, believe it or not. Information is available in the form of books and websites. This is not a new issue. People have been devoted to this cause for a very long time. It's there. I just need to listen. Really listen to it. Maybe I can learn what life is like outside the hole. Maybe I need descriptions of that world from people living in it to remind me how to get there. Maybe, just maybe, if we start listening. The world is a little scary right now, and I'm not going to pretend there is anything resembling an upside at this point. But I have had a thought in the last week that has brought me some comfort. There is a difference between violence and destruction. Violence is an unarmed black man being choked to death, an unarmed black woman being shot to death in her own bed, or an unarmed teenager being murdered by neighborhood security for walking home at night. Destruction is windows being busted, stores being looted, businesses being destroyed, property being damaged, cars set on fire. You know, like after the Super Bowl. The difference, in my mind, can be illustrated by the insurance. You see, property insurance can and will pay to replace damaged property. Make it look better than it did before even. Buy you a new car. Life insurance, no matter how much they pay, is not going to bring those lives back. One is destruction. The other is violence. Well, there's another example. On September 11th, on the terrorist attacks in 2001, that was a senseless act of violence. And it felt like the world I knew was being destroyed. Now, as scary and upsetting and unsettling as the world is right now, it doesn't feel like September 11th did, like the world as I knew it was coming to an end. That felt like violence was part of the destruction. This feels like violence led to destruction, which can lead to change. When I first moved here to Texas, was right before the Charlottesville Torch March to save a Confederate statue happened in Virginia. Today, in Richmond, Virginia, where I used to live, are talking about have decided to pull down their Confederate statues along Monument Avenue. Now, along with several other cities that have already decided to do the same. The statues and the history they represent won't ever be forgotten, and now it won't be glorified either. They will be moved to cemeteries and museums because that's where they belong, if anywhere at all, as reminders of the past, not as symbols of racial oppression in the present. Things change. Nothing is permanent, including white privilege. Change often comes in the form of destruction, but does not require violence. People in this country, white people in this country, can be different. We can change. Sometimes trauma forces us to become new, whether we like it or not. We can support each other. We can have support for each other. The more white people working to get us out of this hole, the better. We have to stop fixing, start listening, and start talking to the racism in our lives. As scary as it is to confront the racism in your family, in your home, in your workspace, on your social media, we cannot ignore it anymore. My last piece of advice comes back to us from the first sermon I gave here at this church. I was speaking then and now primarily to a predominantly white audience. I said, in order to fight hate, we must first stop fighting. If you attack the white racist in your life, they will stop listening, accuse you, attack you, defend themselves as best they can. Come at them with love. If you have love, or if they have love or respect for you even, then they might listen. If they do not have enough love or respect to listen to you, then you are not the one to reach them. What sacrifices are you willing to make to get out of this hole and to live in this world under construction? Please join us in singing the last verses of our hymn today, number 401. Kumbaya, come by here.
Some have been trying, Lord, kumbaya. Someone's still dying, Lord, come by here. Someone's denying, Lord, kumbaya. Oh, Lord, kumbaya. Kumbaya, my Lord, kumbaya. Kumbaya, my Lord, kumbaya. Kumbaya, my Lord, kumbaya. Oh, Lord, kumbaya.
I've moved this part of our service to the end, hoping that our prayer or meditation can be taken with you as you go from this place, from this video, if that's how you're experiencing the service this morning. Normally, I'm a person who likes to do meditations, but today I'd like you to join me in the spirit of prayer. In the name of the divine spirit of love and chaos, help us find the balance again. In the name of the God of love and peace, reach through our hearts to one another. To the gods of righteous anger and destruction, keep us righteous. and to the gods of the underworld, please help us get out of this goddamn hole. As I extinguish the chalice, symbolized our time here together, we can take the fire of that commitment, the passion of that flame, with us into the world as we go. As I say my final goodbye to you today, I'm just going to remind you of a few things. Do what you can to get out of the hole, and bring others with you. Remember that chaos can lead to creation. Learn from the tricksters and keep your eye on them. You can be reborn at any time. We are all the lights of this world for each other. Share your joys and sorrows. Remember, there are more than two types of people in this world. Try to fight hate with love. Go in peace.